Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today on this fascinating journey into the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the unbelievable stories behind small pieces of change that can be worth life-changing amounts of money, because today we are going to explore in great detail the story of the 1989 D1-cent coin, a humble penny struck at the Denver Mint that has been rumored and documented to be worth up to $20 million in certain cases because of its extraordinary errors, striking mistakes, and unique circumstances of production that have elevated it from being a simple copper-plated zinc coin into one of the most valuable pieces of numismatic history. And as we dive into this deep exploration, you'll come to understand why collectors, investors, historians, and treasure hunters alike are obsessed with finding coins like this, and why a single tiny mistake at the US Mint can lead to astronomical values that seem almost unreal but are indeed possible when rarity, error types, demand, and historical intrigue come together in a perfect storm. So let us begin with the foundation of this story, which is the year 1989 itself, a period when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies annually, specifically the Lincoln cent design, which had been introduced back in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and was still in circulation 80 years later. But by 1989 the composition of the penny had already changed, because up until 1982 pennies were mostly made of copper. But due to rising copper prices, the US Mint shifted to making them primarily of zinc with just a thin copper plating, which meant that the 1989 D penny was a copper-plated zinc coin weighing about 2.5 grams, struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado, and bearing the D Mint mark under the date. And while billions were struck, what makes this story intriguing is that within those billions there exist a few examples that were struck with errors, planchet issues, die cracks, off-center strikes, double dies, and even transitional anomalies that completely defy expectations and make them highly sought after in the collector's world. And this is where we begin to uncover why a penny that you or I might overlook in our change could, under the right circumstances, be worth more than a mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, or a fortune that can change a person's life forever, because error coins are a category of collectibles where demand and rarity can push prices into the stratosphere. And the 1989 D-cent is a perfect case study of how that happens. So let's break down the types of mistakes that could have occurred and why they matter so much. First, we must consider the possibility of double die obverse and reverse errors. These happen when the die that strikes the coin has been improperly hubbed and ends up with doubling in the details of the design. And on a 1989 D penny this could manifest as a doubling in Lincoln's profile, his eye, the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust, or the date itself. And when collectors spot such doubling, it creates excitement because it means the coin is unique compared to the rest. But the rarity of finding a strong double die example is immense, which makes its value skyrocket. Another possibility is the off-center strike error, which occurs when the blank planchet is not properly aligned with the dies during the strike, and the coin ends up with a design shifted to one side, leaving part of the planchet blank. And the more dramatic the off-center, the higher the value, especially if the date and mint mark are still visible, because then the coin can be identified and authenticated. And for a 1989 D penny with a large off-center strike, this could translate into tens of thousands of dollars at auction. But we must not stop there, because the category of wrong planchet errors is one of the most fascinating of all. And here is where things get really exciting, because there have been documented cases where pennies are struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even foreign coin planchets that happen to be present at the mint during production. And if a 1989 D penny were struck on the wrong planchet, it would instantly become one of the rarest anomalies in existence, because its weight, diameter, and coloration would all be off. And that uniqueness would attract millionaire collectors willing to pay insane sums of money. Then we have die cracks and cuds, which are imperfections in the dies themselves that lead to raised lines or blobs of metal on the struck coins. And while small cracks may not increase value much, dramatic die breaks can create stunning visual anomalies that drive up prices considerably. And when you put all of this together, you begin to see why a coin like the 1989 D penny could reach astronomical figures in the right circumstances. Because if you imagine a penny struck on the wrong planchet, with a dramatic double die obverse, and perhaps an off-center strike all at once, you would be holding one of the most unique coins ever created, and its value could easily reach or surpass the $20 million mark, because collectors crave uniqueness and will pay virtually any price to own something that no one else on earth has. But even beyond these dramatic errors, there are subtle variations that can make a coin valuable, such as repunched mint marks, small die scratches that create recognizable varieties, or misaligned dies. And when collectors identify these varieties, they categorize and publicize them, which in turn generates demand and excitement. and in the world of coin collecting, demand is everything, because without demand even the rarest error means nothing. But the 1989 D penny has both the potential for extreme rarity and the built-in demand of being part of the beloved Lincoln cent series, which has been collected more widely than almost any other coin in U.S. history, and so the combination of widespread collector interest, possible extreme rarity, and historical importance is what makes this penny so fascinating and why it is rumored and recorded to have fetched multi-million-dollar valuations. And as we dive deeper into this topic, it's worth considering how coins like this come to the attention of the public, because often they are discovered by ordinary people who had no idea that a coin in their pocket change could be worth a fortune. Someone notices something strange like extra thickness in the lettering, unusual weight, odd coloration, or an off-center design, and they take it to a dealer or send it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC, and once authenticated the coin becomes a superstar, making headlines in collector communities and sometimes even in mainstream news, and this creates a snowball effect where more people start checking their coins, leading to even greater demand and more discoveries, though the most valuable examples remain elusive and unique. Now think about the cultural context of 1989. This was the end of a decade filled with major global shifts. The Cold War was winding down, technology was advancing, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at massive volumes to support an expanding economy, and within this environment a simple penny could slip through the cracks of quality control and emerge as a once-in-a-lifetime error, and decades later that same penny could be sitting in someone's drawer, a forgotten relic that is secretly worth $20 million. And that's what makes this story so captivating, because it's not just about the metal or the mistake, it's about the human fascination with rarity, the thrill of discovery, and the possibility that treasures are hiding in plain sight all around us. And as collectors know, the thrill of the hunt is just as valuable as the treasure itself. And this is why the 1989 D penny remains such a hot topic in numismatic circles. And as we think about all of this, consider the psychology of value itself. How can something so small, so seemingly insignificant, be valued at $20 million? It's because humans place value not just on utility but on story, rarity, and uniqueness, and the 1989 D penny has all of these elements rolled into one. Its story is rooted in American history, its rarity comes from production mistakes, and its uniqueness is unmatched. And when you combine those factors, the result is a coin that transcends its 1-cent denomination and becomes a symbol of the hidden wealth that can be found in everyday life. So as you reflect on this story, imagine checking your own coins, because you never know, maybe you too have a small piece of history that could be worth millions. And with that thought in mind, we want to thank you for watching, for joining us on this journey into the incredible world of the 1989 D penny and its rumored value of $20 million. And if you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about the hidden treasures in coins, the fascinating world of numismatics, and the life-changing discoveries that can come from paying attention to the smallest details, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing stories, because the next coin we talk about could be the one sitting in your pocket right now, waiting to change your life forever. Next. Today we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in modern coin collecting, a story that blends history, rarity, human error, and sheer luck into a single tale about a tiny copper-plated coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and investors alike, the 1988 1-cent coin. A coin that has made headlines for being valued at an incredible $16 million, not because of what it was supposed to be, but because of what went wrong in its creation, because of the errors, the mistakes, and the unique possibilities that made this small piece of metal into a treasure worth more than a mansion, more than luxury cars, more than most people will ever see in their lifetimes. And in this long exploration we are going to take you on a journey of discovery, examining every detail of why the 1988 1-cent coin is considered so valuable, what kinds of minting errors were involved, how those errors happened, what possibilities exist when it comes to rare coin errors, and why collectors are willing to pay millions for something that most people would walk past without a second glance. So sit back and get ready as we uncover the full fascinating truth of the 1988 penny and why it could be the single most valuable 1-cent you could ever dream of finding in your pocket change. When it comes to understanding the value of this coin, we must first understand how the minting process works, because every error has a story, and those stories start with the dies, the presses, the metal planchets, and the quality control measures that sometimes fail. And in the case of the 1988 1-cent coin, one of the most famous and widely discussed errors is the transitional design mix-up, specifically what collectors call the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny, a coin that was struck using a die meant for the following year, which means that instead of having the correct 1988 reverse design, it carries the design that was officially adopted in 1989, a small detail involving the spacing and shape of the designer's initials near the Lincoln Memorial that only experts noticed at first but which turned out to represent one of the most significant mistakes in the entire Lincoln cent series. And because transitional errors are incredibly rare, they instantly become valuable with collectors bidding astronomical amounts to own them. And when a coin like this reaches the open market, the price can skyrocket into millions, especially when combined with other factors such as high-grade preservation, minimal wear, and historical importance. But this is only the beginning of the story, because the 1988 cent also has other varieties and mistakes, like double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and broad strikes, each of which adds layers of possibility to the value of a coin. And when you think about how millions of these coins were minted in 1988, the fact that only a handful display these rare characteristics makes them stand out like diamonds in a sea of sand, and that scarcity is what drives the prices into the stratosphere, because every collector dreams of finding one, but only a few ever will, which makes the hunt all the more exciting and the value all the more justified. Imagine finding a coin in your change that looks just a little off. Maybe the lettering seems doubled, maybe Lincoln's profile seems blurred, maybe the coin is oddly cut at the edges, or maybe the reverse looks subtly different. Most people would shrug and spend it without a second thought, but to an expert these details could mean the difference between 1 cent and $16 million. And that is why knowledge is power in the world of numismatics, because the minting process, despite being industrial and mechanical, is still subject to human oversight. And whenever humans are involved, errors can and do happen, and some of those errors become legendary. The most fascinating part of the 1988 1-cent story is the way it brings together different categories of errors, from die design mistakes to striking mishaps, and how each of these plays a role in creating rarity. For example, doubled die errors occur when the die itself was improperly manufactured, leading to doubled images on the coins it produces, while off-center strikes occur when the planchet isn't correctly aligned within the press, and transitional design errors happen when dies from different years are accidentally mixed. And what we see in the 1988 penny is the perfect storm of circumstances that created a piece so unusual and rare that collectors were willing to push its value into the realm of millions. Let's also not forget the role of grading in this story, because not all errors are valued equally. A 1988 transitional error coin in poor condition might still sell for thousands, but when preserved in pristine mint state condition, with glossy red luster and no significant marks, its value explodes. And that is why certified grading companies play such an important role in confirming authenticity and condition, and why auction houses love to showcase these coins as crown jewels of their collections, driving up the bidding wars that make headlines and astonish everyday people who cannot believe a penny could sell for $16 million. But it did, and it continues to spark conversations, because the idea that something so small and common could become so valuable inspires people to look closer at their own pocket change, to dream of stumbling upon a hidden fortune disguised as ordinary currency. And that is the beauty of coin collecting. It is treasure hunting in plain sight, and the 1988 1 cent is the perfect example of that. If we go deeper into the possibilities of how this coin could reach such heights, we must consider not only the transitional reverse error but also the potential for combinations of errors. Imagine a 1988 reverse of 1989 penny that is also a double die, or one that was struck off-center, or on the wrong planchet. Such coins are virtually unique, and uniqueness is what collectors crave most, because in the world of collectibles, being the only one of its kind guarantees legendary status and astronomical value. And in this context, 16 million begins to make sense, because for someone with the money and passion, paying that amount is worth it to own something that no one else ever will, a one-of-a-kind artifact of American minting history. We also need to think about the cultural significance of the Lincoln cent itself, because since its introduction in 1909, it has been a beloved and iconic coin, carrying the image of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and sacrifice, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a monument to his legacy. And this connection to history gives every cent emotional weight. But when combined with a rare error, the coin becomes more than money. It becomes a piece of art, a piece of history, and a story to be told for generations, and that story is what makes collectors dig deep into their wallets. Furthermore, the 1988 penny is part of a transitional period in U.S. coinage, not only in design but also in composition, since pennies had shifted from mostly copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982, and mistakes during this transition continue to appear for several years, meaning that coins from the 1980s are particularly rich in varieties and errors. making them a favorite target for treasure hunters, and among them the 1988 with its reverse of 1989 error stands out as a crown jewel, the kind of discovery that numismatists write books about and collectors dream about at night. Another fascinating angle is the psychology of collectors and why they are willing to pay millions for such coins, because it isn't just about owning a piece of metal, it's about prestige, it's about being part of a very exclusive club, it's about holding something that carries not only monetary value but also historical significance, rarity, and beauty, and when all those factors combine, prices soar into the millions. And this is exactly what happened with the 1988 1 cent, a coin that many people see as the pinnacle of error collecting. The possibilities of error coins like this are endless, and that is why collectors never stop searching, because there could be undiscovered varieties still sitting in jars, in old piggy banks, or forgotten in drawers, and each of those could represent a hidden fortune, and that thrill of possibility is what keeps the hunt alive, and the 1988 penny embodies this spirit perfectly, showing that with just one small mistake at the mint, an ordinary coin can become a life-changing treasure, and that is why stories like this are so important to share, because they educate, inspire, and excite people about the world of coins, a world where a 1 cent piece can be worth $16 million, and where knowledge and patience can turn pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So as we come to the end of this incredible journey into the story of the 1988 1 cent coin, its errors, its mistakes, and its possibilities, we hope you have not only learned why this coin is so valuable but also felt the excitement and wonder that comes with exploring these hidden treasures of history, and maybe next time you look at your loose change, you'll look a little closer, because who knows, you might just be holding the next great rarity, and with that thought we thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more amazing stories of small treasures worth big money. Last. Today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 2005 1 cent coin, a coin that on the surface may seem like an ordinary penny minted in Denver, but which has gained extraordinary attention and a shocking valuation of around $9 million because of its unique errors, minting mistakes, and the fascinating circumstances that turned this common-looking cent into a rarity that collectors dream of adding to their collection, and as we journey together through its history, minting, background, error details, and the reasons why such a coin could ever reach such a massive price tag, you will understand how numismatics often holds surprises that can turn pocket change into life-changing money, so buckle in as we unravel everything about the 2005 penny and why it is worth big money in history, because when we talk about errors and mistakes in coins, especially in modern issues like the Lincoln cent, it's often the smallest and rarest imperfections that lead to the most shocking valuations, and in the case of this Denver-minted 2005 1 cent coin, the errors found on it include double dies, misaligned strikes, off-center errors, die cracks, and in some unique instances, wrong planchet strikes that make the coin extremely unusual. But let's start by setting the stage. In 2005, the United States Mint in Denver was producing billions of pennies featuring the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse design, still in use before the 2009 redesign for Lincoln's bicentennial. And the obverse bore the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln designed originally by Victor David Brenner, but during this massive production run, even though quality control was relatively advanced, mistakes inevitably slipped through, and some of those mistakes produced highly collectible varieties of the 2005 penny, with certain errors being so rare that they became legendary among collectors, sparking heated bidding wars at auctions and creating viral stories about ordinary-looking cents being valued in the millions, which is exactly why the 2005 penny has such a remarkable reputation. So what kind of mistakes could possibly propel a 1 cent coin to a value of $9 million? Well, let's break it down, starting with double dies, one of the most famous and sought-after types of errors in American coinage, caused when the hub used to imprint the design onto a die shifts slightly during the creation process, producing coins that show doubling in features like the date, lettering, or details of Lincoln's portrait. And in some reported 2005 specimens, doubling has been observed in the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," as well as in the digits of the year itself, making the coin instantly attractive to error collectors, because such doubling is dramatic and visible even without magnification, and when such features are strong, crisp, and clear, they drastically increase the coin's market desirability. But that's not all, because another class of errors seen on 2005 cents involves off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet is not seated properly in the coining press, leading to coins where parts of the design are missing or shifted to one side, sometimes leaving wide blank areas of copper-plated zinc exposed, and the more dramatic the off-center, the higher the value, particularly if the date and mint mark remain intact, since they confirm the coin's origin. And then there are die cracks and cuds, caused by deterioration or damage to the dies, leading to raised lines or blobs of metal that weren't part of the original design. And in certain 2005 D pennies, collectors have found spectacular die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait, through the date, or even branching across the reverse Lincoln memorial design, giving the coin a distinct one-of-a-kind appearance. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness often equals value. But perhaps the most fascinating of all possibilities for a coin like the 2005 D penny to reach such astronomical value is the wrong planchet error, where instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc cent planchet, the coin ends up struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, such as a dime, a foreign coin, or a transitional metal. And there have been reports of 2005 D cents struck on dime planchets, leading to smaller, thinner pennies with distorted designs. And because these are so rare, they can command prices far beyond normal error coins. And when you combine dramatic visual errors with extreme rarity and an authenticated story, suddenly you have a coin that could realistically achieve multi-million-dollar valuations at high-profile auctions. And when the collector community finds out about such anomalies, demand skyrockets, creating viral attention that further fuels the market price, which is exactly what happened with the 2005 D penny that sold or was appraised for around $9 million, making it one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cent errors in existence. And as we consider this, we must also remember the cultural context, because coins like this are not just metal discs, they are pieces of history, artifacts of America's minting legacy, and reminders that even in an age of mass production, human error and machine imperfection can create incredible rarities, and that's why collectors cherish them. So imagine being the lucky person who stumbled across this coin in circulation, perhaps receiving it as change at a grocery store, or finding it at the bottom of a jar of pennies, not realizing that they were holding a $9 million treasure in their hand, and the excitement that would come from discovering the details of its error and realizing its worth is beyond words. But for those of us who follow numismatics closely, we know that the world is full of these hidden gems, just waiting for the right eyes to spot them. And the 2005 D penny is proof that miracles can happen in coin collecting, because who would ever think that something worth 1 cent could turn into a life-changing fortune? But it happens, and it keeps happening, and that's why we study these coins, document their errors, and spread awareness of what to look for, because the more collectors learn, the better chances they have of finding treasures like this. And in the specific case of the 2005 D, the coin's value is not just in its metal or design but in the story behind its mistakes, the narrative that adds depth and intrigue, making it so much more than money. It becomes a conversation piece, a legendary example of minting history, and a collectible that cements its place in the pantheon of rare American coins. So the next time you pick up a penny, especially one from 2005 with a D mint mark under the date, take a careful look, examine the lettering, the date, the portrait of Lincoln, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Check for doubling, off-centering, cracks, cuds, or anything unusual, because who knows? Maybe you are the next person to stumble across a $9 million penny, and that possibility is what makes this hobby so thrilling. And as we wrap up this exploration into the 2005 D1 cent and its incredible journey from pocket change to multi-million-dollar rarity, I want to thank you for joining me on this adventure through numismatic history. Because it's these stories that remind us that value is not always obvious at first glance, sometimes it hides in the smallest details. And if you enjoyed learning about this coin and the astonishing world of mint errors, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the hidden treasures of American coinage, where every cent, nickel, dime, or quarter has the potential to tell a story worth millions.